Sound awakens something deep within. Welcome to this podcast, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to the song of your soul. In this very first episode, I am joined by Sunder Iyer to talk about the effects of chanting and the transformation it brings about. Sunder Iyer and his wife Maya Iyer are founders of Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam in Kanchipuram, South India. So, Sundarji, thank you for joining us today. I want to start off by asking you what motivated you to sound and mantra chanting?
Well, the whole aspect of sound is very linked to the path of yoga, if you will. These days, when we talk about yoga, we generally understand that as asanas, hatha yoga, asanas, exercises. And very quickly, people jump to say that yoga is for me. I like yoga, or no, 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 that yoga is not for me. But very few realize that the highest form of yoga is called Nada Yoga. The highest form of yoga is the yoga of sound. So all of these other practices lead us to that ultimate state where purely through sound and vibrations, we're able to redefine the reality that creates our life. And so what attracted me to this path was initially exercises and yoga as that's the simplest way of approach because that deals with your body and your breath. And then when it leads you into the mind, that's when the impact of sound, the importance of sound, and all of this came in. And with my Sadguru Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba, with whom I was staying at that point, uh, we began to understand how important that is, and so it kind of naturally drew me to the practice of mantras, chants, but not at it is not one or the other. I now see it as a whole lifestyle. I call it the mantra lifestyle, which is very, very crucial. So that's how it all began.
That's awesome. And what is your philosophy on the role of chanting in our daily life?
So this is a very profound question, and I will be doing injustice if I not bring you and your audience to a much deeper level. So bear with me. Um, in our ancient practices, in our ancient civilization, which we call the Sanatana Dharma, which was the mother of all philosophical thought processes that exist today in the world. Where did they get these ideas from? How did they derive this? They were completely in tune with the universe that surrounded them. So the universe is created of the five elements. Creation itself is sourced from akasha, from space. From space comes fire, akasha comes vayu, which is air, then comes agni, which is electromagnetism and all of that. Electricity, electromagnetism, fire, as we generally call it. And then comes jala, which is all liquids. And then you have matter. So the source of creation itself comes from space. And in space, there is something called spanda, vibration. That's how it begins. Creation is not a historical event as we generally understand today. It is there, right, at every moment. It never ceases to exist. It never had a birth, nor will it have a death. There is no such thing as that because of the five elements being eternal. Creation is eternal. Just like you go to sleep and you get up in the morning, you don't. We can call it death if we want to, but it's sleep. Basically, the I persists through all of those states of consciousness, right? So sound is the basis. Sound is the expression of that vibrational pattern of creation, and from sound comes matter. Even in the Bible, it is said first there was the word was God, and the word became flesh. Even in Asanatan Sarma, we call it Om as the basis of all creation. Om is the basis of Om encompasses the all our states of consciousness, right? The Akara in the Om is the waking state. You and I are awake right now, Jagrat Avastha, as we call it. That is the in the Om. The Ukara in the Om is the Swapna Avastha, the dream state. The Makara in the Om, the part of it, is the deep sleep state. And then there is the Turiya Avastha, the fourth state that is beyond all of this, which is the gap between two Oms. So that you have even there the concept of awareness coming in, and as long as you and I are aware, the creation exists, right? In deep sleep there is no me, and therefore what happens to creation? If you sleep on a $5,000 bed, it's nice when you go to lie down. Once you're fast asleep, that $5,000 bed disappears, right, from your consciousness. Even you disappear from your consciousness. So a simpler way to understand is deep sleep is very close to the turiya avastha. So everything manifests from sound. Everything in creation manifests from sound. So they call it, the Vedanta calls it spanda. So Adi Shankara, in his Saundarya Lahari writes that the primordial energy, Shakti, he says, even without you, none of these other deities like Hari, Hara, and Virincha, that is Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, none of them can even create a smallest vibration without you. In the sense, the Shakti principle is what they all use to create. Shiva Shakti creates, dissolves the universe, if you will. The idea of Vishnu's energy maintains and brings resources, and Brahma brings in creativity through his Shakti. So it's a Shakti principle that is manifested as from Akasha through sound, through vibrations, and then it comes into Vayu, and then finally manifests into Earth. Now, I'm keeping this very short, but now when you listen to this sounds as a philosophy, correct? You and I listen to this. Okay, this is how creation. But how does it apply to me? How does it apply to you? We are a microscopic part of this macrocosm. So the entire macrocosm exists in us as a microscopic five-element body, if you will, right? So we have space within us. So in that inner space, namely, let's call it mind for now. Okay, chitta is a better word. In that inner space that we call chitta, which is mind, intellect, awareness, I, me, mine, all of that put together in a basket. Manas, buddhi, ahankar, all of that together becomes a chitta. So in that inner space, a vibration happens, a sound matters. And from that sound, how does that sound finally come out? Then I begin to nurture that sound through my breath. And then there is a perception element to that sound. And Agni comes and gives me a perception. Not, I don't see it yet. Sight is different from perception. A knowing comes. And then comes a feeling of experience. That is the water element. So you see how even in our own consciousness, from the very spanda, a vibration which we don't feel it, comes a breath that could nurture that particular vibration, or that can kill the vibration. The breath is a very crucial element there, and we can relate that to pranayama practices and why those things matter a lot. And therefore that gives perception is agni element, and then that gives an experience is tasting. Finally a knowing begins to happen, and then that is, in other words, a thought forms. The sound becomes a thought, a feeling, and then that thought finds expression as a manifested word, which is prithvi is all about manifestation, correct? Now, this is the basic philosophy of sound, which I have adopted, which I personally tune into at every stage, and there are many, many implications about this. Like if you look at the television in your home, or the sofa that you're sitting on, or your spouse, your job, your circumstances in life, where did all of that begin? In here, right? At some point, let's say a television, you wanted a television, you had it here, then you nurtured that thought, then you started visualizing it, you discussed it with your spouse or your children or whatever, and then finally, if it is there in your home, it's all from the inner space to the final manifestation. Sound is what finally manifested.
So it is through sound that we are creating our reality. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and that is a power. That is why mantras are so powerful, because through chanting, through mantra, through contemplation, through understanding this energy of sound, we can create our lives or destroy our lives. When I say destroy, it's simply if you and I start telling ourselves, I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good. Let's start doing that for now. Let's say even 3 days, you see the amount of depressed feeling that we can generate, correct? And it will be a real chemical reaction in the brain that will get influence my physiology in the body itself, affect my health and everything around me. People who come to talk to me will get depressed because I'm going to exhibit that in my talk, in my actions, in the way I dress. So sound can either make your life or break your life, and that is, if we understand, that's where the power lies. And that's why in our Vedic times, they harnessed the energy of sound. It is such a powerful thing, and you and I have it right now. We are using sound as an energy, but where it manifests, how do I nurture that inner space of mine? How clear, how clean I can keep it, and what kind of thoughts do I maintain? So that's where this whole practice comes in as a lifestyle, as a philosophy of understanding the power of sound, and then comes mantras and chants and namasmarana and all of that.
So then, how do we keep that space like nurtured? Does it have to start with certain yoga kind of practices first?
Um, yoga, uh, yoga practices, of course, help. Now, before we go into yoga practices, techniques, and all of that, it's important to understand again a very simple way of understanding the power of sound is being mindful. So there are two sources of sound in our two ways sound impact us, your inner space, my inner space, and everybody's space, right? What are they? There is a karma indriya and a jnana indriya, if you will, a sense of sound, a sense of perception, and a sense of action. That sense organ of action that is that is associated with every element. Okay, so in akasha, jnana indriya or the sense of perception is hearing.
Mhm.
Shabda. Shabda means sound, the sense of hearing. The organ of action that is associated, which is karma indriya, which only does, it has no intelligence. It simply does, carries out a task. What is that? That is the mouth. So the hearing and the mouth. So you can see they're so close to each other. So each element has like this. Earth has two elements. One is Jnanendriya and Karmendriya and so on. But we are focused on sound now. So let's stick to that. So Akasha has hearing and mouth. So sense of hearing and sense of speaking. Imagine if we understand the power of the sounds that go into our ears every moment of every day.
Mhm.
What is it doing? It is going in. Now
Mhm.
if I'm mindless about it, like I am passing by and somebody is talking in German, let's say I don't know Germany,
Mhm.
a German language, and so I'm passing by, and people are talking in German. Will it affect my inner space? Not really, because for me it's mindless. I'm not able to understand it. It just goes in. The air in me, the vayu, does not nurture that,
Mhm.
so I ignore it. It comes and goes,
Right.
and it doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Now, if somebody is talking about me or about my best friend or about somebody I know in a language I can understand and I'm passing by,
Mhm.
suddenly my ears give attention and that captures my attention. And depending on what I hear, my breath fluctuates in emotionally if I'm getting agitated by it or otherwise.
Mhm.
And now I begin to nurture that sound in my inner space. So think of the movies we watch, right? Think of the um, yeah, okay, movies, people, the way they talk online, or if it's very agitating, and I keep constantly getting agitated by seeing something or listening to people talk on television, one against the other, or something like that. I'm giving examples here. What is happening in my inner space? I am putting all that is entering in my inner space, and my vayu is nurturing it, and my agni is giving more perception to it. I'm vividly imagining even more stuff around it, correct? And then eventually, what is going to result in my everyday life? That same chaos is going to find its way into my life, either by way of illnesses or some loss or something. Not, if not, it's not yesterday versus today kind of a thing. It is over a period of time. What is it that I'm constantly engaging in,
Mm.
right? And therefore, listening becomes a very important uh, means of creating that inner space. So one of the, before we even go to tech, that's why before we go even to techniques, where we have to understand the first thing, there is no 5 minute technique that can ever fix this. There is no powerful mantra that you chant 3 times a day and suddenly your life is going to turn around. The question is, what am I doing most of the time? What is the quality of conversations, quality of sound that I am entertaining through my ear, that is going into my inner space? Imagine this is the inner space, which is where Shakti is sitting. She's originating it for you. I mean, you and I, we are co-creating it with her. Like we always say, God, God is always says tatastu in Sanatana Dharma, in the Vedic. Whatever you ask, you get.
Right.
So
That's
what does that mean?
sorry.
Tatastu means so be it, so be it, so be it. So whatever I'm feeding in, the innermost divine energy, which is your energy and my energy, that innermost energy is saying, okay, so this is what you want. All right, so be it, so be it. It's creating it.
Mhm.
There is no, see, we out of some disconnect have created some ideas of gods who are somehow sitting somewhere, who's going to decide, oh, you know what, I'm taking a poor thing, I'm going to take pity on them, I'm going to help them, but I won't help them. And that is our very kindergarten way of understanding divinity. In Vedanta, divinity is within you. You are invoking your divine energy. How are you invoking that divine energy? So that divine energy is invoked by sounds. And what kind of sounds do I entertain on an everyday basis? What are the sounds that I attach importance to? So it's very important. So if one analyzes one's life today and says, I'm not happy with where I am, I need to improve my life. If they would come to me, I would tell them first, examine the quality of sounds that is going in through into your ear that you are encouraging. Number two, what is the quality of sounds that come out of your mouth? These days, for example, it's somebody says, "How are you?" It becomes a fashion to say, going on." If that is a sound in my life, what is this? If I'm telling everybody the story that I'm telling everybody is, just going on one day at a time, carrying on, then life will just carry on.
Like that.
Why? Because you have said it, I have said it. So who is doing this? Who is creating this reality? I am creating the reality through the sounds I tell myself. What is the story I tell myself? What is the story I tell others? That is very, very important. And
True.
so, based on this, this determines the fundamental basis of all practices. There is no practice that can magically cure your situation at this point or bring health suddenly. The sound has that energy, but it cannot magically overdo it if um, I don't understand the energy of the sound that I chant. So this is, we have to understand the hearing and the speaking and mindfulness, if you will. To me, a way of understanding Nada Yoga, how do I practice Nada Yoga, is being mindful. I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting there are good sounds and bad sounds at all. There's no good and bad in this. Just be mindful and listen to the sounds that you entertain. Those are the sounds that eventually will find manifestation in your life. There is absolutely no doubt about this.
That's beautiful, Sundarji. Yes, I totally understand. And of also the mantras too, right? So you said kind of like how they don't magically transform overnight. So, but over a period of time, as we keep
Yes,
listening, definitely they do bring a huge transformation. And
absolutely.
that is evident in a lot of people's lives. And also how you mentioned about mindfulness, and that is the key because they are present when they're listening or chanting. So that's when these things are transforming within themselves.
Yes, see, one of the things we need to understand as serious spiritual aspirants, harnessing the energy of sound is the ultimate source of empowerment.
Mhm.
You can literally create the life you want.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's the power of sound. Let's say I chant the Sri Rudram, or I chant the Gayatri, or I chant Namasmarana. I chant my favorite mantra for half an hour every day. Wonderful practice. In that half an hour, your inner consciousness is cleansed. A lot of cleaning happens. But that's for half an hour, right? The 23 hours and 30 minutes, if
Left over.
I'm going to come back and pour um, stuff which is completely against the sound, then what happens is next day I will simply clean the same place. So I'm constantly cleaning and making the place dirty, cleaning and making the place dirty. In other words, it's like you planted a seed of a rose plant, or a tree, a mango tree, for example, and then every 2 days you open it to see if it goes, and then you put it back again, you open it and put it back again. It's never going to become the tree that you want. In other words, the real power of the mantra, the real invocation, in other words, Vak Siddhi, Mantra Siddhi, as it is called, does not happen. The deity of the mantra does not come alive in your consciousness. The deity just remains. So the benefits that, if at all we do incur, we benefit, that is barely scratching the surface of an enormous power that is waiting to give us. It's like, think about this. You're sitting on a, a bench. Just below the bench in the park, there is um, a bag which has got maybe $10 million, let's say, or precious stones and jewels right under that. And you're sitting there looking around, and you're looking around, and you probably notice one of that has fallen out. You say, "Oh my God, I'm so lucky! I'm so lucky! I found this precious stone that can get me $500." And you're so happy. You run around, enjoy.
Right.
Wait a minute, you were just sitting on the bench, and right below you there was $500 million maybe worth of stuff, but you took one piece of it and you're celebrating. That's what happens to us. We get a little benefit and we jump in joy, but that's just a slight crack in the door that opens to this enormous Vaikunta, if you will, or the doors to heaven, if you will, truly speaking, because that is where the power of the mantra lies.
Mhm.
9 out of 10 people stop with the little bits of benefits, and then they go back, not really changing a lifestyle. And therefore, the mantra is never really activated, never really, in spite of all kinds of initiation you might get. But initiation doesn't do anything other than the guru explaining to you exactly what that mantra is about and setting you on that path. But the rest of the entire journey, which is 99.99% of the journey, has to be done by that person. And that does not come if a lifestyle does not support the mantra. So it's very important for us to understand that the mantra is a sadhana, it's a practice, and not mantra alone as a 5 minute practice, 10 minute practice, 30-minute practice. But that has to transform and begin to trigger a whole lifestyle around it. And then when you sit for that 5 minute practice, that begins to really energize the life.
Wow, that's awesome, Sundarji. And how do we make sure that it becomes part of the lifestyle? Like,
Sadhana.
so when you say sadhana, do we make it like a constant practice? Like, do we constantly keep chanting, or how does it work?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. Um, so l- when you say constantly chanting, now you're talking of one particular mantra that you have taken up and you're chanting it throughout the day. The answer is absolutely yes. Um, at any point at, throughout the day, whenever possible, you can chant your particular mantra, whichever you have.
Mhm.
Uh, but having said that, in spite of all of that, there has to be a time in a day where you give 100% focus on that mantra.
Mhm.
For example, an analogy can explain this. Let's say we are busy throughout the day, okay? And we are going around, we don't have time to eat, but we are snacking here and there. We get a cup of tea somewhere, cup of coffee somewhere, we buy a packet of chips, something, or the other, we snack.
Mhm.
Snacking does not make up a meal, correct? So when you come home, you will get satisfaction when you actually have a full meal. at the end of the day, or whenever you get that break, you really want that one meal. Just snacking alone does not help. Maybe you can do it one day. The next day you will still crave for that one meal, correct?
Yes.
It's the same thing with chanting also. So I can say, oh no, no, when I'm driving to work, I listen to my mantra in the form of sound. When I'm cooking, I listen to it. That is all night. That is like snacking
Mm-hmm.
because you're doing other things.
Right.
And mantra is by the way thing is or you're adding on to it because it's convenient for you. Remember this philosophy, spiritual practice is not convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you and I do out of convenience is good
Right.
to some extent, but it's not going to bring about that empowerment and transformation that I'm talking about. It will
Mm-hmm.
not awaken. We might have heard great stories and all of that. We can examine each one of them. There is this one meal a day that is important. All right, and I'll come to that a story. There is an analogy given in our Puranas with that. So let me come back to that. But before that, so I'm driving to work. I listen to kirtans, bhajans, or I listen to God's name, or I chant it, and but my mind is also focused on the road. Mind is it's not a one complete meal where I'm at my table eating my food, not letting anything disturb. Where is that practice? We need to ask ourselves, do I spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day? It really doesn't matter, whatever you start with. But where I'm completely 100% with me and my God and nothing else, with me and my mantra, and I'm completely absorbed into that sound. We need that powerful practice. Once that comes, then the rest of the day, whatever I do will go on energizing this. When I come back the next day to come back to this main meal, in other words, my time of meditation and focusing on this mantra, then I will be able to slowly energize that mantra.
True. Okay.
So sadhana is not just only spreading it at any point in time. That is always good, but then there has to be a particular discipline involved. That's why it's called practice. Sadhana is a philosophy brought into practicality. So if I understand the importance of sound and that I want to re-energize that sound through chanting and mantras, then I have to find a time to chant every day where during that chant there is no other asking. I can't be chanting, let us say for example, I'm Hreem Shreem Sri Matre Namaha, but internally I'm saying, oh mother, give me this, bless my children, bless my home. This asking mentality, this victim mentality, this beggar mentality is what unfortunately demeans the power of a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
When I say Om, I'm Hreem Shreem Sri Matre Nama, I am in the presence of the Divine Mother, period. That sound translates itself into energy, then I have to enjoy that presence because there is nothing else in that presence. Do we do that? We need to ask ourselves. That has to be my main practice. How long should we do this, when we should do, and all of that. Each one of us can decide, and there are good and not so good times in the day when it's all done. We can discuss about that. But the idea is that should be one main thing, and then the rest of it can go on. It's in that context that this Puranic story I was telling you, that there was a person involved, a very ardent devotee of Vishnu,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is Narada, Vishnu's great devotee, who's constantly chanting his name. And this story goes like Vishnu tells Narada, there is a devotee even greater than you down on this earth. Go watch him. And Narada goes to him and watches his lifestyle. He's very busy doing his overall work. And in the night alone, 3 times he says Om Namo Narayana and then goes to sleep. Next day morning, he gets up, he chants 3 times Om Namo Narayana, gets his work done rest of the day. And then he comes back to Vishnu and says, what is this? He just says it 3 times here and there, but then I'm chanting it throughout. That how can he be greater? But and that's when Vishnu tells him, take a bowl of oil, go around the earth, and it's so filled to the brim that when Narada is going around, he is so focused on that, he's not able to think of anything else other than, oh my gosh, I hope this oil doesn't spill over, correct? And then Vishnu asks him, when he finishes that circle, Vishnu asks him, how many times did you chant my name? And Narada says, where was the time to think of anything else other than this oil?
Right.
So Vishnu says, look at that man, in spite of all of that, he found that time to chant my name. So While that story is very nice, and we might conveniently say, you and I, after listening to that story, oh, just three times, I'll also chant morning and evening. It's not that easy. That three times is that soul 100% ekagrata, completely absorbed in that sound. Nothing else matters. At that time, because he's so disciplined, come what may, that devotee would have given up anything but not his practice. Whether he had a previous night engagement, whether he attended a wedding or a birthday party, or it was a weekend, all of that doesn't matter. My spiritual practice, my whole life should revolve around that practice of mine. Then that practice gains a lot of power. So you see where I'm going with this. The idea is not about the technique and the practices. It is more so about the mindfulness and the amount of ekagrata you bring into that
Mantra. Right.
practice.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the quality and the
Absolutely.
complete presence of mind.
Absolutely. And in that, when you chant that mantra or that sound, it has to be just focused on that sound energy alone. There is really no need to translate that into, um, in my own language again. That's why we begin to chant the mantra, but then internally we begin to ask and we begin to converse with God and we bring out our laundry list of our problems and place it in that, then they're missing the whole chant. What I'm doing is I'm chanting it, but internally my mind is full of I, me, and mine. However important that may seem at that moment in life, however crucial that problem is in my life, I have to learn to put that aside. In other words, offer it to the divine and say, right now, I'm going to just be in your presence. See, that is where the power of namasmarana comes in. Namasmarana, we've seen this story in Sakubai, right? Sakubai was, she had every reason to complain. But then throughout her work, she was constantly immersed in the divine chant. So much so that God came and took her work over. Right? That's the concept here. All of these stories are to tell us the power of Namasmarana. But then we kind of, when we listen to the stories, we may miss the importance of how mindful she was, how she enjoyed doing that. And in that chanting, she never complained about her situation. She was enjoying the fact that she could simply chant the name. So, chanting a mantra is not a means to get somewhere,
Mhm.
it's not a technique to achieve something, it is the end product. Chanting God's name, period. There's a full stop there.
Truly.
Why? There's no why to it. That's it. Namasmarana is because what happens is, um, see the mind, for example, we talk about the mind. The mind has no form of its own. Where does it even exist? It doesn't even exist. But then we call it a mind. How? Mind is like a virtual reality. It is a bundle of thoughts constantly creating an appearance that is the mind. Just like all our data goes and creates a cloud in which we say our data is in the cloud. Where is the cloud? There is really no cloud, yet it exists, right? It's a reality, it's virtual nature. It exists as long as Sundar will exist and his email accounts exist and his bank accounts exist. There is a virtual reality exists. Once Sundar closes all his accounts and Sundar ceases to exist, there'll be no more Sundar Iyer found online, correct? That virtual reality will disappear.
Right.
So in our mind is a collection of thoughts.
Mhm.
So the collective patterns of thoughts is what creates the mind. So in Namasmarana, what happens is when I say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When I do that, at that moment, the mind has become Krishna and becoming Ram, becoming Krishna, becoming Ram. There is no room for Sundar there. There is
Right.
no room for I, me, my problems there, nothing. If I'm doing that, then that chanting has lost its effectiveness by almost 99%.
Makes sense.
But when I'm chanting, I have become Krishna, and Krishna has become me. It's that consciousness is that is where the Tukaram and others, when they chanted, they forgot their problems, even though they were steeped in poverty. They were steeped in all the troubles. Tyagaraja to Tukaram to everybody, right? We hear about these saints. We got to understand the beauty of that power of name is at that moment when they chanted, they lifted themselves above where they were into that loka, of God. Salokya it is. In that Salokya, in Salokya means the divine loka. They enter that divine loka of sound and just be there. Then they get the Sarupya, the Rupa manifests. They get the darshan. Then Samipya, they get closer to that form. And then there is Sayujya, there is merging. All of that beauty happens in that space. So when we chant, we got to enter into that sound energy. Just merge ourselves into the beauty of the chanting and just be there. That is the power of chant, japa, as it is, or namasmarana. Japam, namasmarana, all of these are very correlated and very, they're the same pretty much. Japa is constant repetition of one particular mantra. Namasmarana is out of feeling and devotion and love. I just sing, I can speak, I can sing, I can do all of that. Like Hare Krishna is both a japa and a namasmarana. So there are powerful, powerful mantras that can take us to that those realms.
So then I feel like before we even take up chanting or japa, I isn't getting like trying to get to that nice mindful headspace is important.
Absolutely.
So then
Absolutely.
what would that look like?
Again, for the lack of any other word, I would say mindful living.
Right.
So, to be practical, what are the sources of sound today for us? Let's say listening, correct?
Mhm.
It is mostly the magic of the phone. I can't show a phone because I'm looking into one. But you and I know that. We cling to it like it's one extra part of the body now. It's not wrong or right. It's just what the fact of life is, correct? I'm the last person to say don't look into your phone or don't look into television and so on and so forth. There are a lot of good things. It's a tool like any other tool. Okay. But can we be mindful of the kind of conversations we entertain on our phones? What are the text messages I'm forwarding? Is it just gossip that I'm entertaining in? Remember, every time I do something, I am creating that reality, right? uh, I see a violent scene, somebody sends it to me. I'm like, oh my God, let me send this. It's so interesting. And we send it out to everybody. When I magnify a violent thing, for example, or magnify a gossip, the universe says tathastu. Maybe she wants this magnified in her life. So tathastu. At some point, that is going to come back to me in a magnified manner. This is the truth. This is why collectively you and I and all of us have built a world which is confusion and there is chaos. Where did that chaos exist? In your mind, in my mind, in our inner space, we encourage it. What does that mean? When was the last time, um, Lakshmi, you and I sat and watched a movie from the 1940s? Do
I
you
can
remember when you watched it?
no, I can.
Okay, so why don't we watch it? Why? Because it's boring, right? They're just black and white. Each scene is so long, and the camera shot just moves like this, and it just seems to go on forever. What do we like now? We like fast moving scenes. We like some plots and subplots and some action, and there has to be has to be some masala, right? That masala that we search for in the movies is the masala you and I attract in our lives. That masala is what manifests in our world as real masala. So we can't simply say, I want only the good parts, but I don't want the other part. I can't, right? When I buy a car, I love the speed I'm driving in, I get the comfort of the car, but I'm also buying the potential danger of accidents if I'm careless,
True.
correct?
Mhm.
So I can't just say I want the car, I want only the good things. I don't want the traffic on the road. I just want to enjoy my car. It doesn't come. It comes, all of that comes as a package. So, number one, let us be mindful of the sounds that go into the ears. What are the conversations that I have with my friends? What are the conversations I entertain, I encourage?
Mhm.
And what is the conversation I indulge in? What is the sound that comes out of my mouth? It's very simple in one way. The sounds that go into my ears and the sound that comes out of my mouth. What is it? Now you might say, but then shouldn't we watch television? What do I do? I'll tell you, I can only tell you what I can do. How do I do? Is if at all I want to watch entertainment, I watch silly, laughable comedies. something that really has no makes no sense at all.
Mhm.
Okay, it keeps me childish. I laugh, I smile, and it is good because I get bored anyway in those kind of silly comedies. I get bored in about 15, 20 minutes, and that's a good break for me. That's good enough for me. Um, because they have, for me, they have no consequences.
Mhm.
Now, this is my personal. I'm just sharing with you because these things have to be very real. I'm not trying to just preach a philosophy and not practice it, correct? So, for me, comedy or something which is very light, I don't care. But when there is an advertisement that comes in the middle, I just mute it simply because I don't want the sound energies influencing. These days, uh, s- marketing firms have understood the power of sounds, right? Subliminally, they call it subliminal suggestions. They subliminally suggest to you about certain products.
Mhm. True.
You and I might think, no, 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 I'm not even bothered. We are just talking that sound, let it go on. Subliminally, the subconscious mind is registering every single sound around you. So you might be having guests in your home, and there might be some show going on television, but that all that sound is subliminally registering itself. So advertisers have understood that. So they influence the subconscious mind, not
Mhm.
conscious mind. So one way to eliminate these subliminal suggestions is just mute. Don't allow sounds to entertain you at all. So let us be watchful of the sounds that go into our ears, into our eyes, through the phone, through the television. Let us be mindful of the text messages that I'm sending. Now, you might say that is reading, that is not sound. Of course, that is sound, right? That is a thought finding its manifestation in in my words. Correct? Words are very important. What are the words that go out? And then what happens is that will prepare you for your mantra chanting. You
Mhm.
might think there are two different things, but they are not. They're completely in. That is why that the energy of sound, the mantra deity will find his or her manifestation that depending on the form that you have adopted, that manifestation happens so beautifully and so amazingly because we are beginning to understand and appreciate sound in all its forms. Um, a simple mantra, let's say the 16 showed us a mantra like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, like that. It is 16 petals. All the 16 aspects of our mind is touched upon by these sounds. Her and Ra are very powerful. Her belongs to the space element.
Mhm.
Her comes from the Kantaya, it's called the guttural sound. Her. And Ra comes is a retroflex sound, the Murdhanya. It comes from the Agni element. So you create space and you create Agni. You create space and Agni. So that Agni means perception, Agni means darshan, Agni means ability to see. So that deity will manifest for you to see. So her and Ra, Hrim, Hara, Hari, these are very powerful mantras. Just that, those two sounds alone. But how do I entertain that?
Right.
you know so when I chant these names, I begin to experience ha, how does it come, ra, how does it come. So when I entertain these kind of sounds, then the reality begins to manifest. So my lifestyle has to be ready to harness these energies. Now that her can come in high when I tell my friends also hi. If so, after hi, I'm going to follow with a series of 15-minute gossip. Hey, hi, how are you? Oh my God, did you see this person? Oh, this happened, that happened. Now her has been completely polluted with gossip.
Mhm.
But her is a powerful divine sound. That's why Hanuman is a very powerful energy. Her,
Mhm.
cream, her comes, when you're tired, you might say, oh, that her, it exhalation. The primordial energy of creation begins with her.
Mhm.
Hayagriva. That's why it says Hayagriva is the birth of sounds, and Vedas came from Hayagriva. Her. Her is a very powerful sound, but her, hey, hi, hello, all of that has the same mantra. So if I say hello, hi, hey, and then follow it up with all junk, then when I sit to chant and say Hare Krishna, how does the subconscious mind suddenly switch definitions now? It doesn't understand. So the
That
chitta cannot understand. So that conflict is what emerges as conflict in our life. So we are getting the power of the mantras because of its inherent energy of the sound, but we are barely touching the surface of it, you know? Do I make sense?
It totally makes sense, Sundarji, and
Thank
it
you.
I can relate to it kind of because lately I visited family and I was watching news. I usually don't watch, but I was watching news pretty much off and on, and I was sitting to chant, and I was like, "How come I'm not feeling like I want to chant, or I'm not able to get to that blissful mode?" So now it all makes sense because all that news was not sitting where it should be in my head. So it's probably affecting the way, the quality of my chanting.
Absolutely, you hit the nail on its head. Absolutely. And imagine if that goes on an everyday basis. You just had a short exposure, but imagine that on an everyday basis for weeks and months and perhaps years. What happens to somebody's conscious reality, right?
True.
Um, so we have to be really focused on this mindful thing. I speak so strongly about this is simply because my entire childhood was raised in an ashram. When I was 17, I joined Sai Baba's ashram in Puttaparthi. I left it when I was 34 years.
Wow.
My wife joined that ashram when she was in the eighth grade. She left when she finished the graduation and worked in the hospital and so on. So both of us spent anywhere between 13 to 15, 16 years in an ashram. And ashram was we begin the morning with 21 ohms.
Wow.
First thing you get up in the morning, you only engage yourself in 21 ohms. And there's a beautiful chanting of Suprabhatam. It doesn't matter which god and deity at that point. Really doesn't matter. Just imagine the sound that is influencing and setting the start of your day.
True.
How beautiful that. And even, I mean, to a large extent, most of our homes in India and India in general, if you see, I'm going to be in Kanchipuram for some time. So in Kanchipuram, you get up in the morning, there are beautiful chants in the temples, and it's a very nice way to start your day. So wonderful, right? So if we can start our day like that, and throughout the day in our ashram, we barely spoke. We were raised very traditionally. Um, we've taught to be mindful. So having lived that kind of life, I begin to appreciate the energy of sound, the quality of the conversations that we indulge in, because I've begun to believe, and it's my experience, that that creates our reality. And like you said, when we sit down to meditate on the mantra or meditate on the deity, and go back to my making my connection with my divinity. Why? Because that's my reality is getting in touch with my godhead. I have to do that. Without that, I will be again and again, I'm going to be coming back to this life form, completely tied up in this idea of I am Sundar, right? If I want to break that, I want to go back. How does that turn into a real experience as different from a philosophy or a belief? How does that turn? Mantra japa is a great, like I said, Nada Yoga is the highest form of practice. But then if my lifestyle doesn't support it, then the quality of that mantra sadhana is largely compromised. So
No.
you are right. That's exactly why you were not able to. So imagine one thing is food, the other one the sound. The other thing is also when you say lifestyle, it's about the food that we eat and so on.
Yeah. And it also kind of affected my sleep, like watching the news and getting all that information.
Hmm.
Of course, a lot of confusion and chaos has happened. But so,
Because they are exciting in nature, correct?
yeah.
That's
And
why.
it's all not positive either. So that
Mhm.
kind of affects our mindset. So sorry to digress a little bit, but I also wanted to ask you in relation to this, how do you prepare yourself both physically and mentally before a chanting session or a satsang performance?
So um, when I first asked my guru, Sai Baba, when I asked him, when should I chant? Um, because Baba was talking to me and he said the power of Namasmarana, and he said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, chepte undu. Then I asked him, Swami, eppudu cheppala? That means when do I chant it? And so he got so annoyed. Eppudukaina cheppu, he said. Bathroom lo కానీ కిచెన్ లో కానీ ఎప్పటికైనా చెప్తే ఉండాలా అని. So the idea is Number one is a constant awareness of sound energy,
Mhm.
and whenever it's possible to be in tune with it, helps me to prepare. Correct? That is one very important part of it. I cannot live a life complete, and we talked about this now. So I cannot live a life completely divorced of my practice and then come suddenly back into practice and decide that practice should somehow become fruitful. It cannot. Like you just said, you watch television, which is completely in not in accordance with your thought processes, and
Mhm.
therefore when you sat down to think, it was actually your mind was in a very disturbed state. So the one way I prepare myself is in my own personal space. I have early mornings is what I dedicate for all of my spiritual practice as that main meal a day, if you will. And that is it begins with yoga asanas. It prepares. I start with the body, go into the breath, go into the mind, and then enter the state of sound. So that is one very important level of practice that I've learned now over many decades now, right? I'm 63 years old, so it's been there for many, many, many years now. So it comes very easily and very flawlessly for me. But it comes with practice, and one has to keep practicing. The other one is, especially when it comes to mantra chanting, the other time I like is when I go to sleep. I talk to my wife, we watch television or whatever it is, all that is done. But finally, when I close my eyes and go into sleep, I bring back my chant. And then I go into that world of chanting, chanting till I drift into sleep. In the middle of the night, in between, even if I get up, I just go back to that chant. It's almost like I take up from where I left off. It comes with practice again. So what happens is when that sleep is throughout the night and goes on, when you get up in the morning, the chant is going on in your head, and then you carry that into your morning practice of whatever it is. So it becomes almost like a continuous. I'm showing it like a wave because there will be times it might go into your subconscious mind. You're engaging in something else, some other conversations, like we're doing this podcast right now. But at some point, it'll again surface because it's a continuous thread, right? So there is no particular way or a technique by which I prepare myself.
Mhm.
It is the overall day that I spend, which automatically prepares me for my spiritual practices in the morning, which is yoga asanas. Asanas are preparatory. It's like um, getting the body ready because the
Mhm.
body is the temple. And if I have to go within first, understand the body, then go with the breath. The breath takes you deep into the sound source. The breath is that. That's why, see, in Ramayana, the story of Ramayana, the most powerful characters, apart from Rama and Sita, of course, they're the Shiva and Shakti, if you will, the Vishnu and Lakshmi. So uh, it's the Hanuman.
Mhm.
Hanuman is taught to us as how? As the essence of Vayu, not just Vayu,
Mhm.
as the essence of Vayu, the prana, the one that gives energy to even Vayu, that is Hanuman. So that prana is what takes through prana alone you go to Sita. The,
Mhm.
the Hanuman gets darshan of Sita, right? And so he goes in, the prana vayu goes in and then arranges the getting together of Rama and Sita. For us, Sita is in your case, my case, I can speak for my case. My Sita, in other words, my divinity, she's lost in Lanka, deep down in the Mooladhara, surrounded by the 10 senses. She's lost. She
Mhm.
has to be discovered. How do I go there? Through Hanuman. Only Hanuman can go there. How? Through breath. So through yoga practice, through asanas, through the breath, I enter that realm into the mind. That's why Annamaya Kosha, then within that there is Pranamaya Kosha. Within the Pranamaya Kosha, in other words, within the breath, there is the Manomaya Kosha.
Mhm.
So imagine how powerful that is, right? So the asana practice leads you into breathing, breathing leads you into the mind, and then in the deep Shavasana state, I I practice Yoga Nidra, where I'm neither awake nor asleep, and in that state, you begin to listen to the power of sounds. So, one of the things that I've experienced now over a period of time is I don't consciously chant, I listen now. So, in other words, mantra becomes active when you begin to listen to it in your own consciousness.
Neural consciousness. Okay.
So, there is no conscious practice. You have to practice it consciously for some time, over a period of time, over weeks or months or years or whatever it is, depending all depends on the intensity and how clean you are able to maintain that inner space. Then you begin to listen. You begin to listen to that chant. That's why there is spoken japa and there is internal japa, manasika japa. Manasika japa is more important, more powerful, because now you're altering the inner space with sounds, right? Without having to speak it. But that inner japa, manasika japa, is not when you're chanting mentally, it's what you listen.
True.
So, can I sit down and listen to that mantra?
Mm.
Just listen to that mantra being chanted again and again. How long can I maintain that listening thing? It comes with external practice. So, there are so many aspects to each of these um, questions that you have raised, but I hope I'm doing a little bit of justice
Oh no,
by giving you an idea.
it's all a blessing. We are truly grateful that you're here, Sundarji. Yeah, and
Thank you. Thank you.
and every.
These are the gifts given to us, right, by our rishis, the enlightened souls, the avatars, the teachers, given to us over thousands of years. So we are sitting on a treasure trove of all this powerful, self-empowering messages and lessons. So it comes only by way of sharing this. So thank you for doing this amazing job. Your
Thank
podcast will definitely reach, even if it reaches a few, it'll reach the people who need it.
Thank you, Sundarji. Your blessings is all we need.
Absolutely.
And it's beautiful that you spoke about Shakti during these Navaratri days and how, especially Saundarya Lahari, because it's very close to my heart. So that was like, wow, it's amazing. It's a blessing in itself. So I'm grateful for today and look forward to many more sessions with you.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure, like I said, and there's so much to discover. If you and your audience would like to know more, I'm at your service. So thank you for having me. Have a blessed day, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Sundarji. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Take a deep breath, carry the peace with you, and I will see you next time.